We are at the Urban Farmer, and we have Natalie Yoder as our speaker this afternoon. Natalie has a degree in geography and natural resource management from the University of Texas at Austin. She's the co-founder and installer of over 20 gardens with the Backyard Gardener, Go Farm, www.gofarm.com, and currently an independent urban farmer of Nanny Goat Farms, which is comprised of many small urban plots around the east side of Austin. Growing knowledge comes from experience in Austin, Texas. Her growing knowledge comes from experience in Austin, Belle, Brazil, and Whitefish, Montana. Welcome.
Hello.
Now you can put it up.
So my name is Natalie, and I'm a farmer, a self-proclaimed urban farmer on the east side of Austin, Texas. And what I have kind of organized today for an urban farming discussion is a little basic. So if you're in here and you're sitting in here and you're an experienced gardener or an experienced farmer, feel free to stick around if you want and wait till the end and ask some questions, and maybe we can delve into more serious topics or discussions as to what you found works for you or things as such. But I'm just basically going to talk about what urban farming is, kind of where it started from, why it's important, why it's good, and then kind of how you could do it if you, say, had an urban lot or some grass that you were watering. So this is like the formal definition of urban agriculture, which essentially means like farming in the city, urban agriculture. And what I talk about farming and I talk about gardening, and they're pretty much the exact same thing, only farmers are trying to make money and gardeners are just doing it for fun. They could be the same size, but that's kind of the difference in my head when I talk about it. And it's usually very associated with sustainable, chemical-free. The whole movement of urban agriculture kind of sprang from that and sprang from those ideas, so almost synonymous most of the time. So first of all, why is it important for us to even have urban agriculture? And I think that the discussion has to be started with the fact that people are moving towards cities, people are migrating to cities, and our city populations are increasing rather dramatically. So here's a fancy little chart, and it has a lot of numbers, but it pretty much is saying that across the board, no matter if it in 1980 was 19% or in 1980 was 80%, a good amount of differing nations are increasing in their population in the city. Granted, you have to take into account that we're also having a population increase, but definitely having a migration into city-wise. And then a lot of reports actually have found that living in cities are actually more sustainable, especially when it comes to like carbon footprint. So I think that this report just says like a Londoner has a substantially less carbon footprint, substantially smaller carbon footprint than the average person living in the UK. And that same fact was found with like a city New Yorker versus the US average. So there is something about living in small spaces, about all of us kind of coming together and co-living in a sense in that real urban environment that makes it a little bit more sustainable. So we have people moving to cities, and we have the fact that cities might be a little bit more beneficial as far as our footprint on the land around us. And this page said at one point that we're also having a trend of our food traveling really long distances to find us. They say that our average meal comes 1,500 miles to our table. 1,500 miles, that's a pretty steep jump to get to your table. So there's another drive towards urban agriculture just based on how far our food is traveling nowadays. In addition to that, we also think about how centralized kind of our food production is, as far as like 90% of our domestic vegetables coming from California alone. So if you go on the East Coast, that's all coming from California, so it's a pretty long drive. This is a study done in Chicago. It was based on looking at the farmer's market and the supermarket, and in comparable areas and seeing how far the food traveled to a farmer's market versus how far it traveled to a normal conventional supermarket. So an apple went 1,500 miles, but only 105 miles to the farmer's market. It's a good traveling apple. And I hate to read these things out, but they're just so beautiful. A recent study found that the average item of organic produce in the supermarket actually traveled further from the farm than the average item of conventional produce. If every citizen ate just one meal a week, any meal composed of locally, organically raised meats and produce, we could reduce our country's oil consumption by 1.1 million barrels of oil every week. So, okay, so everyone's moving to the cities, and we're all a little bit more sustainable from the cities, and if we buy food from far away, we spend a lot of oil. So, clearly, urban agriculture is the way to go, right? So we should grow food close to us. So local, local, local. Sustainable is good too. Organic maybe isn't as awesome as they say it is. I think that the procedures of growing organic are absolutely fantastic, but there might be another step to that, maybe bringing it a little bit closer to home. So the foundations of urban farming. And I think that the first time we could really mark urban farming being important and being maybe even hip or cool to do in the US was during World War II with Victory Gardens. During that period, 20 million Americans produced 40% of the vegetable, like the produce supply, just by growing in their backyards. And then after Victory Gardens kind of phased out, people would talk about people with backyard gardens. So it's like they had the Victory Gardens from World War II, where it became a way to reference to a type of urban agriculture. So essentially synonymous, again, with urban agriculture. We also have community gardens, which is something that's become increasingly popular, and I think that that's also a really important form of urban agriculture today, and it started a long time ago. They reported about 6,000 in 1996, and community gardens, they allow you to sell the produce that you produce at community gardens, so it's also a form of informal economy for people to be able to sell food that they produce at community gardens. And it's something that's been around and totally feasible as far as let's share a plot of land because none of us have land in the city. So that's another foundation of urban agriculture. And current urban agriculture is about things like the backyard gardener, which is becoming increasingly popular. I know that my farm in San Francisco got a lot of news press through the New York Times, and they essentially go into people's backyard, they make a vegetable garden for you, and if you're too busy to deal with that vegetable garden, or you don't know anything about it, and you work a full-time job, well then you can pay them to weekly take care of that vegetable garden. Oh, and then you can pay them to harvest the vegetables from the vegetable garden and deliver it to your back door. So that is the ultimate urban farm, because these guys are getting paid just to farm and garden for you. It's almost like having a pool man, only it's a garden girl or a garden boy. So that is a very popular new way of urban agriculture. And we have a couple, in the Austin area, definitely a lot within Portland. Along the West Coast, there's a lot of urban farming in that form. Another really popular trend has been something called spin agriculture. It started in the UK, and it's essentially people bartering land, using unused plots of land. It can be urban, can be a little bit more rural, and increasing their yield by really intensively growing things on little plots of land. And so it's like a spin agriculture, it's like a business plan you can buy online. So if you want to become a spin farmer, you can pay $10 and you have the entire business plan in front of you. Another excellent source for urban agriculture today. And these are some in the Austin area. I'm from Austin, Texas. I grew on the east side of Austin. So Boggy Creek Farm, I think, is like one of the ultimate urban farms. Due to the fact that it's a farm, it's really a farm when you go out there. They run on an old well. I think they're one of the oldest homesteads in Austin. So you should check them out. They have a little farmers market. And then my farm, as I mentioned, my farm through San Francisco. Resolution Gardens is a company currently running out of Austin. They do something very similar to my farm. So it's this kind of whole movement. And my familiarity with the subject is that I started a business called Go Farm. And Go Farm was a backyard garden, essentially. So what we did was we went into people's backyards and we installed vegetable gardens, all different kinds of vegetable gardens, like raised bed or in-ground, all different sizes, shapes, and tailored them to whatever the homeowner wanted. And then we would come in and maintain this vegetable garden. Sometimes we come in once a season, sometimes we come in whenever there was an emergency, or we come bi-weekly and we'd maintain it and harvest those vegetables and deliver it to their door. But I don't do that anymore. I am currently, have switched over to